I probably shouldn't have gone. That's what I kept telling myself the entire drive to their house. Claire had texted me the night before, one of those vague late-night messages that felt more like a warning than an invitation. "Hey, Thomas wants to talk to you. Just you. About something kinda personal. Can you stop by tomorrow?" I almost replied, "Absolutely not." Thomas was her husband. We were never close, never even that friendly, really. He was always polite, but there was a stiffness to him, like he couldn't quite decide if he trusted me. That might have had something to do with the fact that I was openly gay, and very obviously not his favorite person. Still, I said yes. Claire and I had been best friends since college. She was like a sister to me. If something was going on, I wanted to help, so I showed up on a rainy Sunday afternoon, wearing the same hoodie I always wore when I didn't want to be noticed, my hair still damp from the shower. The second I rang the bell, the door swung open, like Thomas had been waiting. "Hey," he said. His voice was lower than I remembered, quieter. "Come in." He stepped back, and I hesitated. The house was too quiet. No TV in the background. No sound of Claire moving around upstairs. "She's not here," Thomas said, reading my mind. "She's at her sister's. Took the baby with her." My stomach sank a little. So this was a setup. Still, I walked in. The place looked the same. Spotless, tastefully decorated, warm-toned lighting. The only thing out of place was Thomas himself. He looked tired. Like, deep tired. The kind you carry in your shoulders and behind your eyes. He had dark stubble on his jaw and was wearing a plain black long sleeve that hugged his chest in a way I immediately tried not to notice. We sat in the kitchen. He didn't offer me anything to drink, and I didn't ask. "I know this is weird," he said, sitting across from me, arms folded. Can I talk? And you don't say anything until I finish?" I nodded. "Sure." He exhaled, rubbed his hands together, then said the last thing I ever expected to hear. "I think I might be gay." Silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. "I haven't said it out loud to anyone," he added quickly. "Not even Claire. And I'm not even sure. It's just, lately things feel different. I feel different. And I don't know who else to talk to about it." I blinked at him, stunned. "I'm flattered," I said, half joking, trying to ease the tension. "But you realize this isn't like tech support, right? I don't hand out sexuality answers over coffee." He gave a small, humorless smile. "I know, you've always been honest, even when people didn't want to hear it." That part was true. Claire used to call me her emotional hitman, the one who said what everyone else danced around. But this wasn't a casual confrontation. This was a bombshell. A man married to my best friend was sitting across from me, practically shaking, telling me he might not be straight. "Have you told her?" I asked gently. "No, I can't. Not yet." He looked down at his hands, then back at me. "That's why I needed to talk to you. I keep thinking about things I've never let myself think about before. And lately, I think about you." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Thomas?" "I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I swear, when I see you, I feel something I don't feel with anyone else. And I needed to say it, even if it's insane." It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Like the words had been clawing at his throat for months, maybe years. And now that they were out, he looked lighter. But I felt the opposite. "Look," I said slowly, "I don't even know how to respond to that. I mean, this is a lot. Claire's my best friend." "I know," he whispered. "I'm not trying to hurt her." "Then what are you trying to do?" He didn't answer right away, just stared at me with this raw, searching expression. "Understand myself," he finally said. "Figure out if this is real, or just confusion, midlife crisis. I don't know." The rain tapped gently against the window behind him. Everything felt suspended. like we were in some weird pocket of time where nothing made sense. I shouldn't have come, I muttered, standing up. Thomas stood too. Wait, please don't go. Not yet. I hesitated. He stepped closer. Too close. His breath was shallow, his eyes locked on mine. And for a moment, I didn't see Claire's husband. I saw a man teetering on the edge of something terrifying and exhilarating. A man who had no idea what he was doing, but knew he was already doing it. I'm sorry, he said. I keep thinking about what it would feel like if I touched you. My entire body froze. I've never done anything like this, he added, but I think about it all the time. I should have said something, should have stopped it. But I didn't. Not when his hand brushed mine. Not when he stepped even closer, his eyes flicking to my mouth. Not when he leaned in and I realized this wasn't hypothetical anymore. This was happening. And I had no idea what I was supposed to do next. I didn't kiss him. That's the part one keep coming back to, over and over. When his face was inches from mine, when his breath warmed the air between us, when his hand grazed my wrist and lingered like it belonged there, I didn't kiss him, but I didn't move either. Thomas hovered there, just long enough for it to be undeniable, just long enough for me to feel the electric weight of his body so close to mine, his chest rising and falling faster than it had a second ago. The only sound in the room was the rain, and beneath that, the slow, thunderous beat of my own pulse. He pulled back first, not far but enough. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours, stepped away, and ran a hand through his hair, clearly shaken. Shit, he muttered, pacing toward the kitchen island. I'm sorry, that wasn't fair. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. You didn't do anything. I wanted to, he said, looking at me again. That's the problem. I didn't know how to answer that. There wasn't a right thing to say. Not when the lines were already so blurred I couldn't see straight. I don't even know what this is, I finally said. Is this you exploring something? Or is this about me? He shook his head, frustrated. I don't know. I wish I did. He leaned against the counter, arms folded, eyes down. I took a breath. You can't keep this in forever. Claire deserves to know. I'm not cheating on her, he snapped, his voice tight. I didn't say you were, but you're not exactly being honest either. That shut him up. For a while. I was about to grab my jacket and leave when he spoke again, quieter this time. I thought maybe if I said it out loud it would go away. I turned toward him. Confused. Said what? That I'm not straight, he said. That I think about guys. That I think about you. I thought if I just confessed it, maybe it would lose its grip on me. He looked up and there was no anger in his eyes, just sadness. But it didn't, he added. Saying it didn't make it go away. I didn't know what to do with that. Because a part of me, deep down, a part one didn't want to admit existed. Wanted him to keep going. Wanted to know what it would feel like if he actually did touch me, kiss me, undress me, in the dim light of his kitchen like this was some alternate universe where consequences didn't exist. But that wasn't real life. This can't happen, I said quietly. You know that, right? He nodded slowly. Yeah, I know. There was a long silence. Then he said something I didn't expect. Can I ask you something personal? I raised an eyebrow, wary. After all that, sure, why not? He didn't smile. He looked nervous again. How did you know? It took me a second to realize what he meant. That I was gay? Yeah. I sat back down at the table. I think I always did, even before I had a word for it. But it took years before I could say it out loud and not feel like I was setting fire to my whole life. He nodded like he understood that on some level. Did it get better after you came out? Eventually, I said. But it got a lot harder before it got easier. Thomas ran his thumb along the edge of the counter. I'm scared. I looked at him for a long time, not as Claire's husband, not as some stray guy dipping his toe into dangerous water, just as a man, flawed, afraid, unsure of himself. "Yeah," I said, "you should be." That made him laugh, just a little. But then I added, "But that doesn't mean you should keep lying. To Claire. To yourself. It's gonna eat you alive." He nodded again, slower this time, more real. "I know." We sat there in silence for a while. Just the two of us, two people sitting on the edge of something they weren't sure how to name. Eventually, I stood up. "I should go." Thomas didn't stop me, but right before I reached the door, he said one last thing. "I don't know what's gonna happen next, but I don't want this to be the last time we talk." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I believed him. I didn't tell Claire. Not right away. That part still messes with me. Because I've always been the honest friend, the one who calls people out, who doesn't sit back and let things rot from the inside out. But when I got back to my apartment that night, soaked from the rain and emotionally exhausted, I just couldn't. Not because I wanted to protect Thomas, but because I wasn't sure what I'd be telling her. He didn't kiss me, he didn't touch me, he didn't cheat. But something had happened. Something that had cracked open the surface of everything I thought I knew about their marriage, and about him. For days, I didn't hear from either of them. No follow-up texts from Claire. No cryptic messages from Thomas. I told myself that was good, that things were calming down, that he'd probably decided to stay silent and let whatever that moment was disappear into the past. But then I saw him again. It was at the grocery store, of all places. I was walking out with a sad little basket of frozen meals and overpriced almond milk, and there he was, standing by the self-checkout in a navy button-down, sleeves rolled, looking like he'd just walked out of a magazine ad for hot but emotionally unavailable dads. He saw me before I could pretend not to see him. "Hey," he said, walking over. I forced a smile. "Hey." It should have been awkward. And maybe it was. But there was something about the way he looked at me that didn't feel tentative anymore. "How've you been?" he asked. "I've been good. You?" He shrugged. "Still married." Still confused. "So, you know, the usual." I stared at him. "Maybe don't say that out loud. In a grocery store, where someone might know your wife." He winced. "Fair." There was a beat of silence. Then he added, "I've been thinking about that night." I looked around, instinctively checking if anyone was listening. "Okay, Thomas, maybe not here." "Come over tonight," he said suddenly. I blinked. "What?" "She's on call. It's just me and the baby, and he'll be asleep by 8. I want to talk. For real this time. I owe you that." I hesitated. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "I do," he replied. "You were honest with me. You didn't take advantage. You could have. And you didn't." He stepped closer, voice low. "I don't want this to be a thing I bury. I want to face it. I want to face me." I exhaled slowly. My heart was hammering in a way I didn't want to acknowledge. "All right," I said quietly. "I'll come." That night, the house felt different. It was still the same perfectly curated, Pottery Barn-ish living room. Same white walls. Same baby toys tucked neatly in baskets. But the energy was different. Thomas was barefoot. No button down this time. Just a soft gray tee that clung to his chest in all the wrong ways. He offered me a drink. I declined. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. He didn't waste time. "I told you I was scared," he said, "but I didn't tell you how long I've been scared." I didn't speak. I just listened. "I think I knew in high school," he said. "Maybe earlier. I had this best friend, Jason. We were always together. Everyone used to say we were joined at the hip. And I used to think about him. Like, really think about him. But I never said it. I buried it. Buried it so deep I convinced myself it wasn't real." He rubbed his hands together, eyes on the floor. "Then I met Claire. And she was safe. Kind. Smart. Beautiful. And I told myself, this is enough." He looked at me. But it wasn't. I sat there, heart heavy. Does she know any of this? No, not yet. You need to tell her. I will, he said. I have to. But I needed to talk to you first, because the truth is, I didn't just feel something that night because I was unraveling. I felt it because of you. I swallowed hard. Thomas stood up, slowly walked over to where I was sitting, and stopped just in front of me. I've been dreaming about you, he said, almost every night since. My breath caught in my throat. And it's not just about closeness, he added. It's about how you make me feel, how seen I felt that night. I've never had that before. I should have said something, told him to stop, told him this was dangerous and unfair, but instead, I reached for his hand. And he let me. His hand was warm. That's what I remember most in that moment. Not the heat in my face, not the silence pulsing between us, but the feel of his skin against mine. His fingers didn't grip or pull. They just stayed there, like he was afraid I'd flinch or disappear. I didn't. I didn't move at all. Thomas let out a slow breath and sat beside me, closer this time, closer than any friend should sit. Our knees barely touched. My heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. I don't know what I'm doing, he said. I gave a short, shaky laugh. That makes two of us. He looked at me and I caught it. The flicker of something behind his eyes. Not lust, not confusion, something else. Like relief and fear and longing all tangled together. Why me? I asked. Out of everyone, why now? Why this? He hesitated. Because with you, it doesn't feel wrong. That hit me harder than I expected. Because the truth was, I'd always felt something around Thomas, even back when we first met, back when he was still just Claire's new boyfriend, the one who wore dress shirts, even on Sundays, and never laughed too loud. There was always a tension between us, but I chalked it up to mutual discomfort. A straight man being guarded around his wife's gay best friend. Nothing more. At least, that's what I told myself. But now he was sitting here admitting everything I never thought I'd hear, and I didn't know what the hell to do with that. He turned toward me, his voice quieter. Can I ask you something? Yeah, I said. Have you ever wanted someone you weren't supposed to? My throat tightened. I looked away. Yes, I said. His hand moved, just barely. A small, cautious shift until the back of his knuckles brushed mine. Is this one of those times? He asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I stood up and walked to the kitchen. Poured myself a glass of water with hands that were only pretending not to shake. He followed a moment later. You don't have to do this, I said. Whatever this is, you can figure this out without dragging me into it. I'm not dragging you, he said. I'm standing here. Because I want to be here. I turned to face him. You're married, Thomas. You have a child. I know, he said, and I'm not pretending that doesn't matter. I can't keep pretending I'm not who I am. And who are you? He stepped closer. I'm someone who's falling apart. And for some reason, the only time I feel whole is when I'm around you. God, I hated how much I wanted that to be true. Because a part of me, some desperate, ignored part, did feel seen when I was around him. And that part didn't care about morality or complications or the wreckage this could cause. It just wanted this man, this moment, this quiet honesty between us. Thomas reached up and touched my face, just the side of it, gentle, trembling fingers along my jawline like he wasn't sure he was allowed to. I didn't stop him. I don't want to cheat, he whispered. I just want to know what it feels like, to be close to someone, really close, without pretending. I looked at him, trying to find the line I wasn't supposed to cross, but it was gone, wiped away by weeks of silence, by years of buried truths, by the feel of his skin on mine. So I leaned in. Not a kiss, not yet. Just enough to feel his breath on my lips. Just enough to let him know I would kiss him, if he wanted it too. His eyes fluttered shut. His fingers curled against my shirt. And then, a sound. a soft wail, through the baby monitor. We both froze. Reality came crashing down like a punch to the chest. He pulled back first, scrubbed a hand through his hair, swore under his breath. "I have to get him," he said, already moving. I just stood there, still, numb, and as he disappeared down the hallway, I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. The silence after he walked out of the room was brutal. I stood there in the kitchen like an idiot, one hand still resting against the countertop where I'd braced myself when I thought, knew he was going to kiss me. My heart was still pounding, my breath shallow, but now it felt ridiculous, like I'd let myself be swept into something that had no place existing in real life. Down the hall, I heard Thomas murmuring softly, baby talk, the occasional shush. It was surreal. Minutes ago, he was confessing things that could implode his entire life, and now he was rocking his infant son back to sleep. Part of me wanted to leave. Actually, most of me did. But I didn't. Instead, I sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on my knees, trying to get a grip on what the hell had just happened, trying to push back the selfish part of me that didn't just want closure. It wanted more. I didn't even hear him come back in. "You stayed," he said quietly. I looked up. His hair was tousled, his face softer. Whatever had cracked open earlier between us, it wasn't gone. It was just quieter now, like the storm had passed but left debris everywhere. "I didn't know if I should," I said. He sat down across from me again, but this time there was distance, a deliberate one. "I needed to go to him," he said, as if he owed me an explanation. Not just because he cried, but because I needed to remember what I'm risking. I nodded. "Good, you should." We sat in silence for a while. It wasn't like earlier, it was heavier, more complicated. Like neither of us wanted to speak first, because we knew whatever came next might shatter the delicate thread still holding us together. "I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen," Thomas finally said. "Good," I said again, this time quieter. "But I need you to understand something. Whatever I'm feeling, for you, for myself, this isn't just a phase, and it's not your responsibility to fix it or carry it with me." I looked at him, confused. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need time," he said. "Time to figure out what this means for me, for Claire, for everything. And I can't do that if I'm tangled up with you. Not right now." It wasn't what I expected, and weirdly, it hurt. "You think I want to be someone's secret?" I asked. "You think I want this?" "No," he said quickly. "I don't. That's why I'm saying it. Because I respect you. I respect what you said that night. About not crossing lines we can't uncross." I exhaled slowly. "But you still want to," he nodded. "Every day." That admission landed like a punch to the gut. Because, yeah, I wanted it too. And hearing it out loud only made the ache worse. "Then what do we do?" I asked. "Just pretend this didn't happen? Go back to being acquaintances who pretend we're only friends because our lives are connected through Claire?" Thomas looked at me like he wanted to say something more, but stopped himself. Instead, he said, "No, we don't pretend, but we step back, at least until I figure out how to be honest with her." And there it was. The line. The pause button neither of us wanted to press, but maybe we had to. I stood up. My limbs felt heavy, like the adrenaline had finally drained out of me. He stood too. "I'll walk you out," he said. We didn't talk as we moved toward the door. It was quiet now, the kind of quiet that comes with restraint, the kind that burns in your throat. At the door, he hesitated. His hand hovered near mine again, and for a second, I thought maybe he'd reach for me, but he didn't. "Thank you," he said instead, "for listening, for not judging me." I nodded, jaw tight. "Just figure it out, Thomas, for everyone's sake." He opened the door. The air outside was cool. The rain had stopped, but everything still smelled damp and electric. I stepped out. He didn't follow. "Good night," I said. "Good night," he replied, and closed the door. And just like that, I was alone again, with a heart that wasn't sure if it had just dodged a bullet or missed something it would never get back. 2 weeks passed. No texts, no calls, no awkward run-ins at the store or unexpected drop-ins, just silence. I tried to stay busy, threw myself into work, met up with friends, even let my roommate drag me to a bottomless mimosa brunch where I pretended not to check my phone every 10 minutes. I kept telling myself this was a good thing, distance was healthy. Thomas needed space to figure himself out, and I needed to not be the person standing in the middle of his life like a neon-lit detour sign. But saying it and feeling it were two very different things. And it all came crashing back when I got the text from Claire. "Hey! Thomas and I are hosting a little backyard thing this weekend, just a few people. You better come, I miss your face." I stared at the screen for a long time. Claire, my best friend. The woman I'd shared dorm rooms and heartbreaks and hangovers with, the one who trusted me enough to cry on my shoulder after their first fight and ask me to stand next to her at their wedding. And now her husband had stood inches from my face and confessed feelings I hadn't asked for, but couldn't forget. Still, I knew I had to go, because skipping it would say more than showing up ever could. The backyard gathering was casual. String lights, beer buckets, a small grill smoking in the corner. I recognized a few faces from Claire's work and some old mutual friends from college. Everything was loud and bright and normal. Until I saw him, Thomas. He was standing by the grill, flipping something, beer in hand. When he looked up and saw me, he froze just a second too long before offering a nod, polite, almost distant. Claire threw her arms around me the moment I walked in. "Oh my God, finally," she said. "I was starting to think you ghosted us." I hugged her back, trying not to feel the guilt creep in. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, "even if the host is criminally bad at texting." She laughed. "Tell me about it." The night moved slowly. Conversations, laughter, clinking bottles. I kept my distance from Thomas. Not in a dramatic way. Just enough to keep things from boiling over. We didn't exchange more than 2 glances, and both were brief, careful, restrained. It wasn't until later, when the party had thinned out and people started heading home, that I felt the shift. I was helping Claire carry in some folding chairs when she paused, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Hey," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "Thomas told me he talked to you." I nearly dropped the chair. "What?" "Yeah," she said, voice softer now. "He said he talked to you a few weeks ago about something big, something personal, and that you were really kind about it." My mouth went dry. "I didn't ask for details," she added. "I figured if it was meant to come up, it would. I've noticed he's been different since then. More present. Calmer. In a weird way. Like he finally took a breath after holding it for years." I didn't know what to say. Claire looked at me for a long moment. "Whatever you said to him, thank you." I nodded, unsure if I was going to throw up or cry. She smiled and headed back outside. I stood in the kitchen, frozen, until I felt it. That shift in the air again. That awareness. I turned and Thomas was standing just inside the hallway watching me. "She doesn't know," he said, voice low. "I figured," I replied. "But I told her the truth," he added. "At least some of it. That I've been questioning things. That I needed time to understand what I want." "And what do you want?" I asked, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. He looked down, then back at me. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but I know I don't want to lose you completely." My chest tightened. "I can't be your secret," I said quietly. "I'm not asking you to be," he said. I needed you to know I'm trying. That I meant what I said. That night wasn't some impulsive, weak moment. It was real. We stared at each other, the hum of the fridge loud in the silence. Then he took a step forward. No touch, no kiss, just a look. "I'm working on it," he said. "And when I figure out where this goes, I hope it's somewhere you'll want to be." And then he turned and walked away, back into the yard, back into the life he was still untangling. And I stood there, heart full of something that felt a lot like hope, but wasn't quite ready to believe it yet. I didn't expect to hear from him again, not because I thought he was lying, not this time, but because life has a way of closing doors, quietly, gently, no slamming, no drama, just the slow drift of time creating distance where there used to be tension. That's what I expected. Instead, 3 weeks later, I got a message. I told her everything. That was all it said. No hello, no lead-in, no emoji to soften the blow, just a sentence that carried more weight than anything he'd said to me in person. My chest tightened as I stared at the screen. I didn't even know what everything meant. I didn't ask. I just replied, "Are you okay?" A few minutes passed before he responded, "Not really, but I think I will be." That was it. No follow-up, no request to talk, just a quiet moment of truth that left me rattled, in ways I hadn't expected. The next day, I ran into Claire. She looked tired, but not angry. I braced myself for awkwardness, for some unspoken accusation to hang between us, but it never came. Instead, she hugged me and said, "We're gonna take some space. He needs to figure himself out. I need to figure out what that means for us. But we're not at war. I want him to be happy. And I want to be too." I just nodded, unsure what I was even allowed to say. She didn't ask for details. She didn't offer them either. We talked for 10 minutes about life, work, the weather, and then she left. And I stood on the sidewalk, feeling like I'd witnessed the quietest unraveling of a marriage I'd ever seen. No screaming, no betrayal. Just two people letting go of a version of life that no longer fit. 2 nights later, I heard the knock. I opened the door, and there he was, Thomas. He looked different. Not just physically, though he was clearly running on too little sleep, his eyes a little puffy, his jaw more scruffy than usual. But emotionally, he looked lighter. "I moved out," he said. "I'm staying with my brother for now." I stepped aside and let him in. We didn't talk much at first. He sat on my couch like it was the first real moment of peace he'd had in weeks. I handed him a glass of water. He took it with a quiet thank you. "I don't know what happens next," he said finally. "You don't have to," I said. "But I do know this," he continued. "I don't want to keep wondering what it would feel like." He set the glass down. Then he stood. And then he kissed me. No build-up, no hesitation. Just a kiss. Soft. Sure, not rushed. And in that moment, the world stopped spinning. I kissed him back. For the first time, it wasn't guilt, it wasn't tension, it wasn't wondering what it would mean. It was real. It was quiet. And it was right. When we finally pulled apart, he didn't say anything right away. Just looked at me like he was still catching up with what had just happened. "I've been thinking about this," he said. "Every night, every day. Every time I told myself to forget you." I nodded, breath still shallow. "Yeah, me too." He smiled, just a little. The kind of smile that starts small but means something big. Then he reached for my hand, not to pull me anywhere, not to start something more, just to hold it. Like maybe, for the first time in a long time, he finally knew where he belonged. He didn't stay the night. Not because I asked him to leave. Not because of guilt or confusion or second thoughts. But because he said something that stuck with me. I don't want our first time being in between versions of myself. So he kissed me once more. Slow, like it meant something, and left. Just like that. A quiet, close to a moment that could have easily turned into chaos. But instead, it felt like a beginning. After that, things didn't exactly get easier. Life doesn't bend itself into neat little chapters just because you figure out who you are. There were still hard conversations. There were lawyers and custody talks. There were nights Thomas called me just to breathe into the phone because that was all he could manage. But he never backed away again. He kept showing up. Sometimes just to sit beside me in silence. Sometimes to talk about the baby, or therapy, or how strange it felt to shop for clothes and finally buy the things he actually liked. Sometimes he'd cry. Sometimes I would. One night, maybe a month after that first kiss, we found ourselves on my balcony. It was cold out, the kind of crisp fall air that makes your lungs ache a little, but neither of us went inside. He was leaning on the railing, eyes on the city. I used to think happiness meant being safe, he said. Like, if I could just hold everything together, I'd be okay. I didn't interrupt. I let him keep going. But that was just surviving, he added. This feels like something else. He turned toward me then, eyes tired but steady. It feels like living. I didn't need to say anything. I just walked to him, wrapped my arms around his waist, and let him rest his head against mine. We weren't making any declarations. We weren't rushing into a new title or trying to erase the complexity of how this all began. We were just there, in it, together. Months passed. And slowly, we started building something. It wasn't always romantic. Some days it was just grocery runs and middle-of-the-night texts about baby fevers. Other days it was hand-holding in quiet corners of the park, or stealing small glances over dinner. But it was honest. It was slow. And it was real. Eventually, Claire and I met up, just the two of us. No tension, no drama, just two old friends sitting across from each other in a coffee shop. She sipped her drink and gave me a tired but genuine smile. I want him to be happy, she said. And if that's with you, then I'm glad he finally got there. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a blessing. But it was grace. And that was enough. Today, Thomas and I still take it day by day. He's still figuring out what queerness means for him, outside of a label, outside of expectation. Some days he questions everything. Other days he doesn't question a thing. But through it all, we're steady. And when people ask how it started, I never tell the whole truth. Because how do you explain that it all began with a conversation he wasn't ready to have? One he whispered across a quiet kitchen floor, just a little too close to the edge. And how, somehow, against all odds, it didn't end in disaster. It ended here. With a life neither of us planned for, but both of us finally chose.